All right. Welcome back. This is Sarcasm Speaks. I'm Jared here with Bob. We got Chris on the show today. It's been a long time.
A couple of years.
Yeah. I was going to say you were, but I think the last time we called you in, right? We might have been in Jamie's room when we were recording that.
Yeah, I feel like that was like July 2019.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Wow.
Well, welcome back.
Oh, thank you. Good to be back.
Thanks
for having me, guys.
Yeah.
I think that's how that goes.
Yeah. So we just went over this before I hit the record button, but I'll let you guys know too. I have no idea what's going to happen because we're now working on a free Zoom license or just a free Zoom account, right? Because I don't have a license anymore. So, you know, we're only allowed to have a meeting for, I think, 40 minutes when it's 3 or more people. So at some point, you know, on the YouTube, I'll obviously go in and edit everything in post. But if at any point, you know, the YouTube video kind of looks jumpy or the audio sounds like it's skipped right around, you know, 32 minutes, well, it's probably because it did. And the meeting ended and we had to start over with a second recording. So
it'll be like some of those podcasts. Like I know Ian's does it, and I listen to the Sweet Spot. It's the podcasts that are typically run by like one person, but they're a part of a network. Mm-hmm. So you always hear it's like, and we're gonna take a quick ad break, but they don't put an ad in.
They don't put an ad,
whatever that ad is, and we're back, and it's like, dude, you never left.
Yeah, because I think some of those ads are regional.
Yeah, and so that's what Ian says.
If you're not in the right region, you just don't get an ad.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just funny because it's always like, you know, and we're back. And it's like just start talking. When you start, just start talking. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. Pet peeve. Yeah. It's a pet peeve that we're guaranteed to do.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know what kind of fucking low budget shit you guys are listening to, but I've never heard that before.
It's always so like the Bacon Bets with Ian, and then the Sweet Spot is John Sherman and Adam Young for It's a Golf Podcast. They all started it themselves, and then they got picked up by someone.
Yeah, but
I don't know. And then I always hear like they do their own cuts. They don't have lead ins or lead, like it's not smooth around because there is no producer. There's no one doing it.
Yeah. Well, as we just alluded to, I no longer am employed at the same place I am before.
I want the story on this.
Yeah. So from a legal standpoint, I think the most we can really get into is that I resigned from my position on Thursday. I have not that I've acquired legal consult, but one of our friends, he's been on the show. Mike is in law. He's almost done with law school actually. And he was like, yeah, probably don't want to bring this up. Probably don't want to talk about this again on the podcast.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So not that we're like even remotely famous, but just the fact that, you know, it's recorded and exists in perpetuity.
On the record, buddy.
Yeah, is a thing. Yep. Yeah, so I don't work there anymore. So I don't have my Zoom license, which is the predicament we're in now. So yeah. It's a funny story, actually. I mean, did you hear the episodes where I actually did talk about it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. So I went back and I nuked those. It was my own decision. Mike didn't say go do that, but it was my own decision after talking with him a little bit.
Well, I sent you a message and expressed my concern that whole thing.
Yeah. So those are scrubbed.
Good idea.
They don't exist anymore anywhere, actually.
Right.
Not on. They're completely removed from our Podbean hosting service. The YouTube is gone. The files don't exist.
You should probably bleach your laptop or your computer because nothing's ever really gone. Remember that.
No, that's true. But
I'll I'll expect a subpoena at some point for being a witness to it.
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
damn
All
it.
65
That's
listeners.
Right. Yep.
They all heard it.
Yeah. Allegedly. Yeah.
Hearsay.
Yeah. You can't prove anything, which
I'll just start yelling random legal terms.
yeah. Objection.
Habeas corpus.
Modus operandi. All right. So we can jump in to this crazy Joe Rogan episode though that we talked about. We went back and forth briefly. Bob knows a little bit. I filled him in a little bit, but he didn't. Right? You didn't listen to the episode, I'm assuming, right?
No, this is with Dr. someone.
Peter McCullough.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of obviously you sent me some of it and I've seen it's been making its rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started noticing like everybody was reposting like you have to check this out, you have to watch it. I would have watched it anyways, but it was just strange like to see everyone like kind of jumping on that and being like, yeah, you gotta listen to this, you gotta check this out, which is
Yeah.
throw some flags.
Yeah. So there was nothing, well, all right. There was a lot of things that were kind of groundbreaking. There wasn't anything necessarily new or like a novel idea, that no one has talked about over the last 2 years. However, hearing it from someone with his credentials that is a legitimate doctor and is a very well-renowned doctor was kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, it's how do I want to say this? It's, I guess, good to hear the other side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like the only exposure that we get from that type of information or for that type of information is somebody like Rogan, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Or like Crystal and Saga, like you sent me a couple things on Crystal and Saga, but it's like it's the limited amount of people that are talking like that is insane to me.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's 90% of the rest of the country at least is not talking about that stuff, not sort of examining that section of it, or even having that idea that okay, maybe there's another side to this story that we're not getting, and it's good to hear. It's good to hear him talk about sort of the other side of it and the history and just not the shit you hear every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So for anyone out there that hasn't heard the episode, the Cliff Notes essentially is this guy, Dr. McCullough, who is a renal cardiologist, right?
Cardiologist, something.
Yeah, he does. His expertise is with kidneys and the heart. So I think he technically is like a renal cardiologist, whatever it's called.
He had a 10-minute introduction.
Yeah. So he brought up a lot of stuff. The biggest thing was the fact that during the whole pandemic, the focus has been on a vaccine rather than treatment, right? Because vaccines aren't treatment. Vaccines are preventative. It's not like, oh my God, I got this illness. Oh, you should go get the vaccine for it now. Like, that's not how that works. Like, it's not a treatment. And no one wants to talk about the treatments. No one wants to, talk about like efficacy or even explore what's available. Everyone's just like, nope, you have to shut up and get the vaccine. Nope, shut up and go get the vaccine. Bob and I have been talking about through the whole time. It's everyone's just like, nope, vaccine. So, he brought up a lot of really weird stuff though, that was a little too conspiratorial for me. Like he started talking about that weird, like, mass psychosis thing. And I was like, all right, man, like that's a little bit of a stretch. Also, like, you're a cardiologist and you're talking about like psychology stuff. Like, I know you're a doctor, but like, if I'm going to be, like even keeled across the board, right, and like question things, like I can't just accept everything this guy says. Then, like, I also have to question what he says too, right? Like, because otherwise you're just blindly following the other side,
I-
like the conservative side, if you will, and it's like, I'm neither of the, I subscribe blindly to neither of those ideologies.
I didn't do any research on or like look up that mass hysteria stuff, but damn, is it accurate to what is going on? And I don't know where that came from. I'm sure it's been, there's some psychologist or psychiatrist had a theory about it, and then whatever. But I mean, just how that kind of played out and is still playing out, and the control that you can leverage from that happening is pretty insane. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. So I also did watch a separate second YouTube video about with this guy, Dr. Z, I think was his name. And it wasn't like a pure like rebuttal to McCullough. But what it was he went through every single one of McCullough's points and kind of said like whether or not it was bullshit or whether it had any credence to it. Tony actually sent it to me and was like, hey, check this out. So he didn't watch it yet, but he sent it to me and was like, hey, check this out. I found this. This guy's really good. He's like a legit doctor who actually knows like stuff and is pretty down the middle. He's down the middle when it comes to politics. So I watched the video and it pretty much solidified a little bit more how I felt anyway. Because like I said, like he hardcore like rebutted the super like conspiracy stuff and was like, no, this isn't true. Or I'm trying to think of there was some other stuff in there when he was like, no, this is blatantly false. But there was a lot of stuff in there where this doctor was like, no, he's got a point here. Like because the big thing was, what's the reason behind the focus on the vaccine versus treatments, right? Like what's the why? Like who benefits from this? And the Dr. Z guy was like, nah, I can't, like, this is legit. Like, this is true. People have been pushing vaccine and not that. So, I mean, I would ask both of you guys, like, I mean, I know we said a little bit of money, but like, why do you think, and what's the deal with that?
Why do I think that the push was so hard for the vaccine?
Yeah, and why people are having such a hard time getting the actual treatments, right? So I know Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan, right? He's Oprah now, right?
Right.
But when he made that post about like everything that he was taking, like he listed like 5 or 6 different things. And then CNN decided to go after him for ivermectin out of all of them, which has been used. The evidence is kind of wishy-washy on whether or not it actually works. But the fact of the matter is it has been used in countries across the world as a treatment. What we do know better is that monoclonal antibodies work, right? Like we're pretty certain that they work. We don't know about ivermectin. We don't know about any of the other stuff, but we're pretty sure that monoclonal antibodies work. However, there's been this like silence on it, right? Like no one talks about it. There's a lot of people that didn't even know that there was a treatment for COVID. Like I've talked about it, obviously, because I went and got it. And people have told me in conversations that I've had with them being like, dude, I didn't even know that there was an actual way to treat this. Like I thought it was just like, because they were saying like, oh, the doctors tell you to go home, drink plenty of fluids and rest, right? They don't tell you anything. So I don't know. It's just strange.
I'm going to slosh my way through this as best I can. Yeah. So I mean, with the vaccine stuff, I think, I mean, who was funding that? Who was paying for all those vaccines? Where was that money coming from? To fund the research and get it all kicked out to everybody. Where is that money coming from?
Yeah, it's the government.
Government, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's guaranteed money. They were written pretty much a blank check to say, do what you want, let's figure this out. And then I think it's just financially beneficial for everyone involved in any of those circles. And freaked out right now.
Do you have a cat? Do you have a cow?
Yeah, pretty much. So
I was gonna say either we got fucking ghosts in the mics
yeah,
or like.
sorry. No, that's my idiot dog.
Now he sounds like a dog.
Where was I going with that? So anyway, so it financially benefits anybody in those circles, and you just make those circles bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And you know, it doesn't, as soon as you have a handful of people with a little bit of power that are power and influence or money, sorry, and so you start having those people pushing for whatever they're pushing for, vaccines, and it doesn't take too much, like it's not too far of a stretch to think that, like, you know, okay, well, people, of course, he's going to set your problem down. So where's it going with that? You have a few handful of people within that circle of power and influence that start pushing that information out, and it's financially beneficial to all of those people that are involved in it, with the doctors, the insurance companies, the media people, whoever it is. And all of a sudden you've got this, like, okay, let's push this. And especially, I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole. I don't really want to, with the whole Trump administration and that stuff. But it's like, you have a very sort of like a once in a lifetime opportunity to just make billions and billions of dollars. Look how well Pfizer and Moderna have done over the past 18 months while this whole thing has been going on, while the rest of us assholes are, you know, struggling to make ends meet. And these guys are like tripling their profits or whatever the hell's going on.
Yeah, haven't they made like $14 billion between the two of them?
Something ridiculous. But it doesn't take that much. It doesn't take that much for that circle of influence to expand, and that circle of people who are financially benefiting from that vaccine push to just keep expanding and expanding. And then it, you know, we're sitting here, like, we've done a little bit of research on our own, but we're probably in the same boat as those people. Like, they're not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, it's an easy answer. It's somebody's offering an answer. It's whether it works or not, obviously it doesn't work, but right. But that was the big push at the time. It was, you know, we're gonna focus on a vaccine, and to the word is not detriment, but to the sort of like eliminating everything else. That's what we're going to push for, and we're going to focus all our attention and influence on that. And you know, how they've done, it clearly worked.
Yeah,
the financial incentive and that part of it worked.
I think a lot of it is like, I don't really buy into like the nefarious side of it that much. Like, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of conspiracy theories, right? There's a lot of talk about like having this like dark, you know, like almost like this cabal that like runs the world type of thing. Yeah. And there's this whole thing. I don't necessarily buy into that. I think, I mean, I always go back to that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Yep. So I think when we started out, everyone was like, oh, we should focus on this because this is how we handle it. And all it takes is a little bit of ego and a little bit of money to totally spin things out of control, right? So from one side, you have literally free money, right? you got free money coming in from the government. And then the other side, you have all of these people that have massive egos that refuse to admit that they might have been wrong about anything, or can like change their opinions on stuff. And as soon as they were like, nope, the vaccines are what we're doing, they work. And everyone was like, yeah, like maybe, like, we don't know how long they work for. Like, that was a legitimate thing. Like, when they first rolled out, everyone was like, we don't know how long they work for, but we're good for a little bit, right? I don't think anyone assumed that they were only good for 6 months,
right?
But you know, I think a lot of people were like, oh, probably good for like at least like a year or something. Nope, 6 months, 8 months if you're lucky. But I think you, like I said, you have that ego part of it where no one was willing to be like, oh, hey, you know what? These things are actually only good for like half the amount of time that we thought they were. So let's try and shift our focus on like, what else can we do in addition, right? Like, we don't have to scrap the vaccines, but like, what can we do in addition? And no one was able to do that. Like, no one could have that conversation. Because also, like I said, it was aided by the oodles of free money from the government.
Yeah. And I think that also goes to that, like that, just people, doctors, nurses, whoever. I'm not taking shots at anybody, but it's kind of like you get the information from whatever system you're in, whatever business, whatever hospital, whatever healthcare system you work for. The people at the top get that information, they push it down to you. Are you going to question that? Are you going to start, pushing back against that, or doing your own stuff and like, going against people that are your bosses or your bosses' bosses or people higher ups in that organization? You're not going to do that. You're just going to kind of go with it. It's, it's not, it's not an ill, it doesn't say, it doesn't, I wish I could put this together here. It's not.
Words are hard.
I know, right? I'm trying to, I know what I want to say, but like, it doesn't impact someone, it doesn't like impact their daily life. Like if you don't go and do your own research on that, what do you give a shit? If you're a doctor or you're a nurse and you have procedures and policies that you're following that are, put on you by your higher ups, like what advantage is it to you to go and do your own research on it, to be able to say, hey, don't we have another treatment for this? Or like, is there maybe there's another option available in the meantime before the vaccine rolls out? Like, is there something else that we can do? And that's what I think what McCullough was talking about for kind of the beginning of the podcast. Like there was a couple other things, like when COVID first happened, he was, treating what was going on inside the body, that whatever the multi-pronged approach. He says, no, we have this medication that treats this, we have this that treats this, like let's try these together and see what happens, rather than just saying, oh, there's nothing we can do. They're not treating people, they're just kind of sending them home or putting them in the hospital, putting them on ventilators.
Yeah.
Which is very disturbing that they were kind of like just had no idea what to do. And it's like, you guys have hundreds and hundreds of years of medical training and research and practical application and like pragmatic approaches to things, and you got nothing for this. You can't come up with anything. There's no combination of drugs that already exist that you can try to start throwing at this thing to see if it works.
Yeah.
But it was a hyper focus on the vaccine and waiting for that to come out, and that was going to be the savior.
Yeah, and the funny part about all of it too was like you said, the vaccines were created under Trump, right? Like the Trump administration. And before they were rolled out, you had everybody on the left that was like, I'm not taking a vaccine from Donald Trump. And now these are the same people that are like, well, you need to get this vaccine or you can't work at your job anymore. And it's like, all right, well, you realize that this is the vaccine that Donald Trump did, right? So my favorite part, and this is what I'm excited for, is Trump is finally back in the news. So he's finally like making the rounds and doing like interviews and putting out press releases and everything. So, what was he on? Was he on with Tucker or Sean Hannity or one of those guys? This was like just last week. So, or maybe it was Bill O'Reilly. So they're in front of an audience and Trump's sitting there with, let's call it Bill O'Reilly. And he asks him about the vaccine. And Trump goes, oh, I love the vaccines. The vaccine is great.
Oh, Jesus.
My administration is responsible for the vaccines.
Of course.
We put into place Operation Warp Speed. Of course, I'm vaccinated. I think people should get the vaccine.
Yep, there you go.
And then the crowd starts to get a little like rustly, right? Because it's Bill O'Reilly and it's Trump. So it's a lot of conservatives. So then Bill O'Reilly asks him like, oh, well, like, have you been boosted? And he goes, oh yeah, I got the booster shot. And then people in the crowd started booing. Like they legit started booing. And Trump goes, no. We're not doing that. And it's when he kept being like, we should be proud of this. We did this. We did this, not me. We. He kept saying that. He goes, not me. We. So, we're able to do this now, and we should love this because my administration is the one that put them out. And I heard that, and I was like, this is amazing. This is it. Like this is like one of the best things ever, because now people are going to start to break, right? Like their minds are going to start to break. Like we already had, what's his nuts? I don't know the guy's name, but he works for CNBC as like a news anchor. And his video went viral, right? So CNBC, again, super liberal. They're part of the whole NBC branch. And this guy who's the news anchor was like, I'm sick of COVID. I just want it to be over. Everyone is done with it. We're all done. We all want to go back. And then he had someone on, like a guest on his show, and goes, everyone's saying Omicron is not deadly. And it's ridiculously easy. It feels like a cold. And he asked, it was the director of the CDC. And he goes, should I just get it and be done with it? And the CDC director was like, well, I wouldn't recommend that, but it's like, it's hilarious, right? Because these people, like, they're breaking, like they're starting to break. And I think it's amazing that Trump came out last week and was like, oh yeah, no, I love the vaccines. I'm vaccinated. I got a booster shot. My administration is responsible for them. He's like, the vaccines are great, because the entire time the left or the Democrats have stolen it for their own, essentially, right? They're like, everyone needs to be vaccinated. Vaccinate, or you're going to kill my grandma. You know how many grandmas you're going to kill if you're not vaccinated? Well, you know what else? You can't have your job if you're not vaccinated. Like that's been the Democrats' plot in all of 2021 was they pushed the vaccine hardcore. And now, part of that too is because people on the right have been so anti like mandate and all that stuff. And now all of a sudden you have literally like the king of the fucking right now goes, oh no, I love the vaccine. My administration is responsible for it. Of course they work. They're great. Everyone should get it. But what he said was, I support them. I think they work, but I don't like the mandates. And he goes, you shouldn't be mandated to get it, but people should get them because they work.
If not for anything, he is the best at making people's heads explode.
Yes.
Like just the shit that comes out of his mouth. And it's like, it's 50% it's exactly what you expect, and 50% just blows your head off. It really is. It's just like, exactly what's coming, but at the same time, you're like, did you just fucking say that? Like, I mean, that's absolutely correct, because by all standards, he should be, anti-vaccine and all. But here he is coming out and saying stuff like that, which is just like, what do you do with that information? What do you like?
Right.
What does Joe Biden do with that? Because he's certainly going to have a comment on it. If he hasn't already, I'm sure he's got a comment on it. Like, you just can't get fucking Trump's name out of their mouth.
No. So I think Biden did have a press conference after that. And in it, he admitted to, well, he didn't admit to it, but he said, the previous administration did a really good job with these vaccines. Like, so he never said Trump. He just said the previous administration did a good job getting these vaccines ready to go. But my administration was the one that delivered them all. And it's like, okay, all right, whatever. And then, but then I think someone asked him about it, and he goes, oh, that's good. That's good. This is great. This is the type of healing that the country needs. No, I'm glad him and I both agree on something.
Can we conspiratorially suggest that the vaccines were actually started under the Obama administration? Is that too much? Too far? You're going too far on that one?
Oh, I don't know. Bob, you get your tinfoil hat ready?
When the first SARS hit? When was that?
That's back in the day.
Way
that was
back. Is that too far?
2003.
Was it that?
Oh, 305.
So the funny thing about this is I looked that now we opened up the can of worms on the conspiracies, but I looked, there was a graphic at some point. This was back when COVID first started, but there's a thing of a bunch of worldwide. There haven't really been pandemics, but whether they're epidemics or pandemics or whatever, have all been in election years. So SARS 1 was 2003. So it was leading into the 04 election. Obviously COVID-19 was in 19 leading into the 2020 election. MERS was in 07 or 08. Ebola was 2012, I think it was. And then there was another one that was random. It wasn't as big in like 2015, but it's like every single one of them. And I'm sure it's cherry picking, right? Like I'm sure there's like fucking at least 2 to 3 epidemics or pandemics every year. And it's like, all right, cool. Let's just find these. But oh no, H1N1 was one of them.
Bird flu, swine flu,
whatever it was, that was in an election year or something, or leading into an election year. Like they're all over the place. I forget what it was, but it was a meme that I saw.
And you had made, I wanted to throw back to your comment.
You had made a comment about it not being nefarious, this whole idea, and I think that it doesn't start that way. For sure doesn't start that way, but don't for a second think that there was a group of people that saw an opportunity.
Oh yeah.
And completely took advantage of it. I think we've seen that sort of cascade into where we are now. And like I kind of ask people, you can't really ask people because as soon as you start talking about this shit, people close their ears, just turn and walk away because nobody wants to. Well, I shouldn't even say that. It's when you start asking questions, people.
Yeah. People don't like when you ask questions.
Yeah, they get really like. But
yeah, I mean, like you said, I think, like I said, I don't think it started with nefarious intentions. But I think it certainly ends up kind of going that way, right? And then, because like I said, people get entrenched in their beliefs, and now also just the way politics are. You can't, and this is why, like you said, Trump is amazing, because he doesn't give a fuck. He'll just say, especially now, because he's not actually campaigning or anything, he'll just say whatever the fuck, which is how he got elected in the first place, because he used to just say whatever the fuck. And then once he got in office, he towed the party lines a lot more. But now he just does whatever. But, the way, like I said, the way politics are is you have to stick with your side no matter what, right? Like, look at all the bullshit that they're trying to throw at Joe Manchin. For a vote that he was like, no, I don't want this. I don't want this, whatever it was, $1.2 trillion budget. And he was like, I feel like this is like monstrously fiscally irresponsible for me to vote for something that's going to cost almost $1.5 trillion when the economy is in the state that it's in currently. And then everyone, all the people on the Democratic side are just ripping him, dragging him through the mud, trying to find as many different ways as they can to make him seem like an evil villain. And it's funny too, because on the other side, so like Ben Shapiro is great, right? Because I follow Ben Shapiro, and I don't listen to his podcast anymore, but I used to. But some of the stuff he's put out and goes, I think people are forgetting the fact that it's not one guy that caused this not to go through. There's 51 people that voted against it, which means that was the majority. So there were 51 votes no and 49 votes yes.
He's the
That,
focal point.
that doesn't mean that one guy is responsible for any of it. It's the majority. That's how the country works, right?
No, it's not, dude. Remember, Mayor Pete was the only one with the key to the shipping containers.
Yep. Yeah.
And we I don't remember what we were talking about. Biden, he's the only guy who could do whatever.
Yeah,
like
and Donald Trump was the one in the lab wearing the lab coat, making the vaccines himself.
Yep. So obviously this guy, this one guy, and only him, he's the only one that could have gotten this bill through.
Yeah,
because that's how that's how Congress works. One guy.
Yep. What was the whole thing? Did we talk? No, I don't think we did. I feel like it's been a while since we recorded. But there was an interview with Charlemagne the God, who is
I saw this.
A rapper.
He was a rapper.
Yeah.
Or at least he I think he's more. So I think he was an artist. Now? I don't know. I think he was an artist, and I think he may have gotten into more the producing side.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know what he does now.
Yeah.
Stay with the podcast with Schultz.
Yeah, he is on a podcast with Andrew Schultz. Yeah. So he's got his own show on Comedy Central, which is why I wasn't sure if he was a comedian or not now. But whatever it is, his show's on Comedy Central. So I want to see if I can find this. But what happened was Kamala Harris was on Charlemagne the God, his show, right? And at one point he asked her a question. Who's the real president of the United States? Is it Joe Manchin or is it Joe Biden? Right? Because Biden has tied his whole thing, his whole, legacy almost to this Build Back Better plan, right? Like this is his whole thing. And this is what's going to get us. And it's obviously not going to go through because Joe Manchin was like, I'm not going to vote for it, which is also really funny because Kirsten Sinema has also said that she wasn't going to vote for it, but she's kept her mouth shut this entire time.
Smart.
And she also doesn't have to, right? So like if Manchin has now gone public that he's going to vote no, she doesn't have to vote no because she said that she doesn't support it, right? And if it came to a vote, she would vote no. But no, and this is politics, right? This is the game that they play. So she knows that as soon as Manchin votes no, it's not going to go through. So she can vote yes, and she looks great, right? But realistically, she doesn't support it. So it's a whole fucking thing. But like I said, regardless, it was about Joe Manchin. And Charlemagne the God was like, who's the real president? Is it Joe Manchin or is it Joe Biden? And then all of a sudden, they try and pretend like their audio goes out. So the press secretary for the vice president's press secretary, whatever, is like, oh no, I don't think we can hear you. And Charlemagne goes, he turns to the camera, like breaks the fourth wall and goes, they're trying to pretend like they can't hear me right now. And then they're like, oh, we might have to go, like where are we going? And he goes, y'all can hear me. You know what you're doing. And then finally, like Kamala Harris, like jumps in and like pushes her, not like pushes, but she scoots her press secretary out of the way because the press secretary stood in front of the camera. So it was like this whole thing. And Kamala Harris was like, oh, I can hear you. I can hear you. As like, she's like ready to challenge him. And then he asked the question again and she just fucking explodes. She goes, don't you go start sounding like a Republican. She points her finger at the camera. And goes, the president is, oh, no, it's Joe Biden. And my name is Kamala Harris and I'm the vice president. And then like it cuts the clip. So the clip, I think there might've been more in the interview after that, but the clip was cut. So I've never actually seen past it.
What was this on? With some Comedy Central?
Yeah, it's his show. So I have the clip right here. So I'll play the audio. Let me know if you guys can hear it.
But there's nothing you've done.
Can you hear it
on
okay?
your worst day as VP that compares to, Mike Pence's worst day as VP. But you seem to get crucified for every little thing in the media. Why do you think that is?
So I'm going to skip through this a little bit because this is a 2-minute long
question.
clip.
But let me just tell you something. I want to meet Kamala Harris and verification.
It must be
to
at the
have
end.
about that, but
So I'm gonna. Okay, all right, yeah, here we go.
It's okay to say yes. We see it. It's okay. I want to know who's the real president of this country. Is it Joe Biden or Joe Manchin?
I'm sorry, I interrupted. It's Simone.
The press secretary in the background.
She can hear me.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me, Madam Vice President?
I'm sorry, you got a rap?
Oh.
So I'm
Say we got a rap.
They're acting like they can't hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, so who's the real president of this country? Is it Joe Manchin or Joe Biden, Madam Vice President?
Come on, Charlemagne. It's Joe Biden.
I can't tell sometimes.
No. It's Joe Biden, and don't start talking like a Republican about asking whether or not he's president.
Do you think Joe Manchin is a problem?
It's Joe Biden, and I'm vice president. And my name is Kamala Harris.
So she's pointing her finger, and that's the end. That was a TMZ clip, but right at the end of that, she sticks both of her hands up and goes, no, and then she points her finger at the camera and goes, it's Joe Biden and my name is Kamala Harris and I'm vice president. And it's a really bad look, really bad look.
Trying to convince themselves.
Yeah. Not what you want to see from, the second most powerful person in the country. And arguably not the world, but definitely the second most powerful person in the country.
He's a bit of a mess.
On paper.
It's funny because these guys are so, when I say these guys, I mean anyone that's getting in front of the podium, it's so scripted. It's so there's no curveballs, there's nothing from left field pretty much when they get up in front of the and you see what happens when they go off script.
Yeah.
Neither of them has, and I can't speak for anyone else. I fucked myself through this whole thing. You're just trying to communicate with you guys today. I'm sorry, I'll just stay up. These are professional speakers. This is what they do. And as soon as it goes off script, you see it sort of firing short circuit. All of the reasons that he can't communicate.
Did you hold on, Chris? Did you just lose audio?
I didn't hear him.
Yeah.
Did you hear him?
No, you got really soft.
Am I still here?
Yeah, you're better now.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Where did you lose me at?
After the curveball.
No, just you just see what happens. The wiring gets crossed and their heads, they get short circuited and their heads explode when they go off script.
Yeah, they can't handle. Joe Biden has literally said, in his interviews, I'm not allowed to take any questions.
Right. Yeah. I'm not allowed. Yeah.
Imagine that.
I'm not saying, I'm not complimenting Trump on this, but at least there was something there. You know what I mean? He could at least speak off script and he could communicate.
Right.
Whether you liked what he was saying or not, or how it came across, he could at least form some sentences.
He was capable.
And he was capable of having conversations sort of outside of what was written in front of him, the teleprompter or the speech. These guys can't do anything. It's
like I said, it's a really bad look. And when you pair that with all of the weird stuff floating around that people don't like working for her, right? There's all those rumors that are going around.
That gets
and
weird for me.
Everyone on her staff just keeps quitting. And it's and then you see this and you're maybe all of the people on her staff that quit to go do something else might have actually had better jobs. Maybe because I don't know who on her staff quit, right? It could have been her personal driver just got a job to go be a driver for Paul McCartney, which probably pays way better. You know what I mean? They the people on her staff that are quitting to I'm assuming go work somewhere else could have done so for better job opportunities. But that's not how it's being portrayed in the
Of
news.
course.
And
Right.
then you see something like that paired with all of that, and you're like, ooh, that's tough.
And I do remember, not to again throw it back to what I was saying before. We can wrap up this COVID stuff. But when you talk to people and you ask them about COVID, and like we the spikes in the cases and the hospitalizations and the hospitals are overwhelmed and all this shit. Like, when does it end? What ends this for you? What is it going to take to go back to this to normal? Like, I don't know. It's when you ask people that question, it's never anything concrete. It's always like, oh, we're just waiting for the cases to go down, waiting for this and waiting for that. It's like, well, that's never going to happen. We know that's never going to happen. So what are we doing? What are you waiting for? What are you like?
Right.
People that are, seeing people on social media, people that I know that are, families fully vaccinated, having quarantine Christmas. What are you doing? Like, what? I don't understand. I'm not going to reach out to this person and be like, hey, because that's not a good look either. But it's just like,
Yeah.
What are you doing? What, like, when are you going to be okay? When is your mental health going to like settle, or you be able to like wrap your head around or come to terms with the fact that like you're going to have to live your life, and living your life might put some people at risk of getting sick, or it might put you at risk of getting sick. So I don't know, unless you want to live like a fucking hermit for the rest of your life. Then
Yeah. I don't know.
yeah.
So
Neither do I.
I think we're nowhere close to moving on just yet. But in the past, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, there's been a couple things that have happened. One is our overlord Omicron just running fucking rampant, like
Sure.
going nuts. But if you think about everything that we've heard from anyone who knows anything about viruses, not politicians, which is the problem, because you'd be listening to virologists and whatnot. At some point, they spread like crazy and they don't kill people, so it happens, and they're gonna go everywhere. So I think this is gonna show us that there's no fucking mandate, there's no testing. There is nothing that's going to fucking stop this thing, because with the way the cases are going, it's going to spread like wildfire. And at some point, someone's going to have to realize there's nothing that any human or government entity can do. Now, that's going to have to combine with a few other things. So like the NFL talking about how asymptomatic people aren't going to have to quarantine or aren't going to have to test, or, they just, if you're vaccinated and asymptomatic, you kind of just hang out until you get symptoms. That's progress in my book. I know it's not the general public, but at least someone's doing it.
You know why that is, though? There's a lot of money to be made in the NFL. The NBA is changing their policies too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
But I also think that where there's smoke, there's fire. So, so this is actually the funny thing is, because as someone who's self-employed and needs to know what the fuck is going on at all times, the CDC says the same thing. You don't need to quarantine unless you have symptoms if you're vaccinated. Now, I don't want to get into the vaccinated, unvaccinated shit, but according to their guidelines, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to quarantine. But what are fucking people doing? They're going out and buying tests so that everyone can test before they go to grandma's house to have Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you fucking out of your minds, people?
Yeah.
Like, you people are fucking nuts. So
Well,
I
then
mean,
the
again,
other thing too is like, they're just saying if you're vaccinated, right? So someone that got the shot in February is considered on the same level as someone that got their shot in November.
yeah,
When now we know that's not true.
Yeah,
No, and
that's bizarre too.
and we're not going to get to so that's going down like a logical level that we will not be able to reach. No, like we can't. No, like seriously, we can't, because that makes too much sense.
Yep.
So then the other thing that people are forgetting is December 31st, the CDC is withdrawing it's emergency authorization request for the PCR test.
Yeah.
Again, our Lord and Savior, the PCR test, the all-knowing PCR test. I desire macaroni pictures. Like, it's like the fucking Moses of fucking like everything. Like what anything that PCR test says is what we then do.
Right.
So if that PCR test says make macaroni pictures, you run out and you make the damn macaroni pictures. So those are gone.
Yeah.
In a week.
Do you want to tell everyone why? Or I'm sorry, do you want to remind everyone why? Because we talked about this.
So that info has been redacted a little bit because so again, it's every time I talk about anything, I have to work so hard to find the info I want. So like my little chart of the difference between COVID and flu and allergy and cold symptoms, it's so hard to find that chart.
Yeah.
I don't even know how the fuck I find it half the time. I should just save it. But it's out there. So it's like if you have the sniffles, that's a rare symptom of COVID. Anyway, whatever, fuck me. But so the PCR tests, the main thing is when they first announced this, probably in August, they were saying that the tests don't differentiate COVID and the flu. They've since backed off that narrative, but that's what it is.
Well, yeah, well, but did they back off of it because it's not true, or did they back off because it makes them look really bad?
Correct. So no, because I think it's both. It makes them look bad, and I don't think they do, because they say, oh, well, this test is still effective at detecting COVID. It's like, but you just said it doesn't differentiate between COVID and the flu. So how do you know? And then it's like, well, no, it's still right.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be. If you say it doesn't work, it can't still be right. Whatever.
So I think so. Again, I'm not a virologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything close. I think what happens is, so we use the term flu as a society, like pretty generally, right? Like, I think so. Again, this is just my thought, just thinking now off the top of my head. There's multiple coronaviruses that exist in the world, right? So I think what happens with people is they get infected with a coronavirus. Like the common cold is a coronavirus. So I think what's happening with people is they're getting sick, and because it's been pounded into their heads for so long. Well, if you're sick, you have to get tested. Well, if you're sick, you have to get tested. Well, with people that get sick, go get tested. And if they're infected with a coronavirus, their test is going to come back positive because the PCR test isn't specific to SARS-CoV-2.
Yeah, they're not sensitive enough.
It's not sensitive enough to SARS-CoV-2. Yeah. So if you're infected with the common cold, which is a coronavirus, it's going to come back COVID positive. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of wild symptoms that don't add up, right? Yeah. So the clear-cut thing for me is the loss of taste and smell, right? And the myocarditis, I think. Those things are specific to COVID, because there's a lot of people, right, that say like, oh, well, I had COVID, but I never lost taste and smell. Or like, I never felt that sick. It just felt like a little head cold. Well, do you think maybe you just had the common cold? And because it's the same type of virus, the testing we have isn't super specific. So it just came back as maybe you just had the common cold. So for me personally, like I tested positive for COVID a few weeks ago. And like I said, like I had myocarditis. Like I know for a fact like that. Like I never lost taste, I never lost smell and any of that shit. But like I never had the shortness of breath, the cough, but I had the myocarditis. So yeah, I probably did. But like because the other thing too is, this goes back to the Peter McCullough stuff, is he has said that he believes you can't get COVID twice. SARS-CoV-2, you can't get that twice. COVID-19, because it is 96% or something like that genetically the same as SARS-CoV-1 from the SARS pandemic back in 2003. And because it's been around since 2003, we know a lot more about it. And we know for a fact that SARS-CoV-1 is a one and done deal. It's like the chicken pox. It's like, I don't know what else is like that. The measles, like it's a one and done thing. You get it and you never have it again. So he believed that. And there's some, whatever, there's some maybe that we don't know. We don't know for sure. But he thinks that it's a one and done thing based off of the fact that it's genetically very similar to SARS-CoV-1. So again, here I am, I'm just an asshole, but could it be possible that if that were true and someone that got COVID-19 and tested positive, then 8, 9, 11 months later, got sick again with the common cold, which is a coronavirus, tested with a PCR test that came back positive. And they're like, oh my God, I had COVID twice. I don't know. I would like to, me sitting here right now, I think that is very plausible.
100%. And that's, I think the way that he kind of, what I took from it anyways, was that if you test positive for COVID twice, one of those was a false positive. One of those was not. Or like you were just talking about.
Yeah, I think it's a massive oversight that people aren't talking about, that there are coronaviruses that exist in nature that people get frequently.
I'm just saying, if and the info will never come out because no one will ever admit fault or that they were wrong. If it ever does come out, though, that these PCR tests were just detecting any coronavirus, because what we do know about those PCR tests is that they were hypersensitive to whatever they were looking for. And again, you'd have to ask a bio major, biomedical major, whatever. So whatever they were looking for, they were 40 times more sensitive. That we know from someone who actually studied the tests or knew the tests or how they were made.
Yeah, they would run it to a 40 cycle. And I think at some point they changed it to 35.
Because it was picking up crazy amounts of info. Yeah. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, how do you know if you have the flu?
You don't.
Headache, body ache. No, the flu?
Well, yeah, I mean,
body aches, but headaches.
There's no test for it, right? Is what I'm saying.
No, but that's why I asked. Hey, how do you know your dog's a boy or girl?
You lift up the legs.
Right. So how do you know you have the flu? Typically you have a headache. Typically you have body aches. Typically you kind of, it hurts to move.
Right.
That's generally how it goes.
Right.
How do you know you have COVID? Well, you might lose taste or smell, or you might have a headache, or you might have body aches, or you might have nothing.
Right.
Or no one knows.
Yeah.
There's a gap in the diagnosis, and again, no one's talking about these tests going away. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I will, if that info ever comes out that those tests were so hypersensitive that they were just picking up any type of coronavirus family member, I'm going to go fucking streaking through, not New Hampshire. I'll keep Chris off the call, but I'm going streaking through fucking Milton or something. Because I fucking called that early on.
Yeah.
I fucking did. And I remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, idiots like us can sit around and come up with these ideas. Like, how can no one else figure that or think or
it doesn't fit their narrative?
Yeah, which is insane, right?
I think, I don't know. I just have this detachment. I just don't give a shit. Like when the whole thing first happened in March of last year, I was pretty nervous about it, just not knowing what it was and how it was going to affect people. And then very soon thereafter,
a few months after, it was like, oh, this is all bullshit. Not all of it. I'm being a little bit sarcastic in saying that. It was like, this is a little bit bullshit, and this is definitely being played. And it's not that, it's like I don't have that. I think people are really invested in it, and people have made significant life changes based on their response to this. And they've seen people get sick around them. They've seen people die around them. Maybe their family members have died, whatever it is. There's a lot of investment for this.
Yeah.
And the further we go down this road of just dragging this along, the more investment people are going to have. And there's people like us who are just like, as this is happening, I think we are sort of
distancing ourselves from it, where you have a whole collection of people, a whole group of people that are just like doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on all of this because they're so invested. What's that bias called with the sunk fallacy or sunk cost fallacy or whatever that is. You know what I'm talking about?
So
you just
when you guys were talking earlier, and you guys, I think Chris, you asked. You know what? I don't even remember how we were talking about it earlier, but then I moved on. Oh, it was the guy. The guy was saying, like, you know, who's to gain, whatever. And obviously it's like pharmaceutical companies, whatever. But the reason this is like continues to go on, I think roots in psychology. Now, in full disclosure, I've taken 3 or 4 psychology classes in college, and I've learned not one thing from any psychology classes. But when I left college and you pay attention to some of like the personal development stuff or whatever, maybe it's cognitive dissonance, but whatever it is, there is a psychological something where if you believe in something and then people try to tell you it's wrong, whether that's correct or incorrect, it makes you believe it more and more strongly.
Yeah.
So now you've got that where someone's like, oh, I'm concerned about this. Don't be concerned. Well, now I'm more concerned, you know, to simplify it. And then you mix in political affiliation to this. Now it becomes a team thing. So now you've got a little bit of a group thing going on. And then never mind. It's like I was talking to my mother the other day on Christmas, and she said something about the hospitals being overwhelmed. I'm like, yeah, they are. She goes, yep. I go, what nurse did you talk to? She's like, oh, I didn't talk to a nurse. I go, what doctor did you talk to? She's like, none. I go, then which hospital is overwhelmed? Because I've talked to 2 nurses, one in Boston, one in Medford. Hospitals ain't overwhelmed, or not as overwhelmed as they always are. And then she's like, well, that's what the news says. I go, yeah, the news ain't telling you the truth. Don't worry. And she's like, well, I guess that makes sense, because when my brother was in the hospital, she goes, I remember walking through, and this was at MGH, and it was just people on gurneys in the hallways because they didn't have enough beds for people. And that was in 2008. But it was in January, which, wow, look at the time right now. So in 2008 in January, there was no pandemic, and the hospitals were overwhelmed then. So now whenever someone says, oh, hospitals are overwhelmed, that is like the function of fucking hospitals, is to be overwhelmed. Yeah. Again, I've always said it. Ask a nurse. How many times do you wish that there were more sick people there? How many times have you wandered around saying, oh man, wow, we got way too much staff. Maybe we should cut back. Never. There's always too much work, not enough help. That's how hospitals operate.
No, I've definitely seen it both ways. And it's certainly anecdotal, just me walking into the hospital for whatever reason I'm there.
And there's been times where there's been people, we don't have enough beds for people. There's people out in the hallways, and there's been times where or the emergency room is overflowing with people. You can't even sit down because there's so many people. Or you go in and it's like nice tonight. It's you know, calm. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are overwhelmed or underwhelmed, whatever that is. But I mean, I don't know, man. That's such a weird, that picture that they're trying to paint with the hospitals being overwhelmed is very bizarre. Like what? And again, it's all, we don't want to overwhelm our hospitals, so better get your vaccine to not end up in the hospital and overwhelm the healthcare system, blah, blah, blah. But that's a very strange one. And for the people that are, the employees that are commenting, you know, the news, the audio clips or the news bites that these reporters are taking from these employees is like, ooh, I don't know how that's going to go over in a couple of years or whenever this all shakes out and you're looking back going, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's very bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, I think to go back to what Bob said a little before, I actually do think we're almost out of the woods on this. And part of the reason being, like I said, that guy, if I can't remember his name for the life of me, but it doesn't matter. That news anchor from CNBC that was like, I'm ready for this to be done. I hate COVID, whatever, and had the CDC director on and was like, Omicron doesn't kill people. Should I just get it and be done with like, so you have someone that is a legitimate news anchor for a very left-wing organization that is saying to their people, right? Like you have to think about like how crazy this actually is, right? So this, if you want to believe it, like the left-wing news outlets have this narrative that they want to push, right? So now they have one of their news anchors that is openly going against this narrative that they're supposedly trying to push. And they just kind of like let it go. Like I think it says a lot that a news anchor for this outlet felt like he's at the point where he is now saying something like that, which means there's plenty of people that identify as themselves as liberal and Democrats that feel that way also. And I think seeing him do that justifies their feelings and makes them feel better. So like I said, I think we're inching towards the end of it.
Yeah, Shepard Smith is who you're talking about.
Yeah, Shepard Smith.
So you got to look at that both ways, though, because that's done for a reason. That's part of what they're doing. You know what I mean? So it's just, he's saying that, but he didn't off the cuff that. You know what I mean? That's not something that he just sort of went, you know, he didn't go off the grid and start talking about that. That was all scripted, or at least that narrative that he's putting out in the mainstream. They knew he was going to do that. It's not like that was a surprise to them. So it's just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah. They probably set it up so that he can sound more human, because it's like so robotic. Just shut up and get your vaccine. Shut up and get your vaccine. Shut up and get your safe and effective vaccine. Shut up and get your safe and effective vaccine. It's like just robot on repeat. And it's like, oh, I'm frustrated. It's like, yeah, dude, everyone's frustrated. Left, right, fucking green, brown, fucking purple. Don't matter. But
yeah.
The only other thing that's light at the end of the tunnel with some of the other stuff, like I look at as almost like progress in a way. The Pfizer pill.
Yeah.
The Pfizer pill is ready to go.
Yeah.
So that's going to be backed by the government again, because they gave Pfizer a shitload of money for it. So they'll be pushing the Pfizer pill as a treatment.
I do have to say, though, whoever is running the show at Pfizer, like, I don't know if it's the CEO, but if it is, bravo to him, because you guys are set for the next however many years. Like, you just spent the last 22 months getting free money from the government. Like, they've probably made $8 billion just from the vaccine, from the vaccine. And now they somewhere along the way,
the pill was a $5 billion deal, I think.
So somewhere along the way, someone had the foresight to be like, shit, dude, I don't know how good these vaccines actually are. So how can we make more money? All right, well, we're going to have people get like a yearly booster, right? Well, and so I could see someone like raise their hand in the back. Well, how many people are actually going to do that? How many people get the flu shot? How many people are going to get that? And they're like, I could see them talking about it. And then someone else in the room being like, why don't we just create a treatment for it? And then the light bulbs go off, and then they're like, cha-ching, cha-ching. And now they're Scrooge McDuck fucking diving into a pool of gold coins because now they have a treatment pill that just got approved.
So the CEO of Pfizer was just on Lex's podcast. Have you seen that?
I listened to that.
So you did listen to it. So
yeah, underwhelming. It was underwhelming.
Because Lex is such a nice guy and he doesn't go after him. He just sort of like takes it.
He like hit him with that one hard question from Jordan P that he prefaced was from Jordan Peterson. And then that was it. Everything else was like,
and didn't challenge him at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Lex, but so do you know, and this is just, it's funny because of how much shit Joe Rogan took for the ivermectin stuff. Do you know what the CEO from Pfizer, do you know what his background is?
No, I just know he's Greek.
Oh, he's a veterinarian.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
That's awesome.
I thought you were gonna tell me he like ran like a computer company or something. Like it was gonna be like it's
yeah.
completely irrelevant, like something.
No.
Or like he was an accountant.
Nope.
He's a vet.
I am 99% sure on that. I saw it. I was like, oh, that's too fucking good.
That's
You can't make that up.
Yeah,
that's too good.
that is amazing. Oh man.
Yep.
Yeah,
veterinarian.
Did he have a specialty? Tell me he was like an equine veteran.
Reptiles.
Like, yeah, like he was actually working on horses.
Oh, that would be more ironic. I got you following along.
Yeah.
His specialty was worms.
Yeah, right. Actually, deworming was his specialty.
Worming and deworming.
Yeah.
all things worm.
Yeah, because if you're gonna get rid of them, you gotta know how to cause them too. It's too fucking funny.
No, I can't find anything specific that Wikipedia.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, veterinarian.
I also just like the idea that like whoever like threw the thermostat up Leo's ass like the last time he was at the vet could be like the CEO of Pfizer in 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, dream big, kids.
Yeah.
It's not so bad if you're sitting there getting bit
That's
by
right.
some little rat terrier if you need to.
Yeah.
It'll all
Someday
work
you
out
could
in
be
the
the
end.
CEO of a massive pharmaceutical company. You know, it's like I always go back to though, like, and that's why I said, like, I don't know who was in charge of all that. Like a company that big, like Pfizer, like I don't know how much the CEO actually has to really do
probably-
with anything.
Probably little and nothing.
I'm
Yeah.
guessing the CEO doesn't do a goddamn fucking thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm sure there's a level, maybe 2 levels below the CEO that also don't do a fucking thing.
Probably.
They just have to make sure that the people below them did what they were supposed to do.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because you know the CEO isn't walking around to the fucking beakers going, "What's what was the mix on this one?"
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like looking through the electron microscope.
Who was Beaker's boss?
Yeah, it's the CEO's name on the lawsuit when everyone fucking sues Pfizer. Oh wait, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't do that for the vaccine. Oops.
Yeah. That see, I mean, I guess from a legal standpoint, I can understand it, but how is that not a red flag to people
Oh, it's the biggest red flag.
when they
Especially
were
after
like,
they just got out of the shit they dealt with 10 years ago.
yeah.
And all
Yeah.
those lawsuits, the billions of dollars of lawsuits that we just went through.
And it's
That
like these companies that when you get to a company, not like I know anything about running a massive company, but from what I've heard and what I've gathered from listening to other people talk about it, these companies like that are that big, it's part of their operating budget
Yes.
to have
Yep.
lawsuits.
They get sued all the fucking time.
They're
You
just
see-
like they budget like whatever it is, $250 million a year in legal fees. They're like, yep, fuck it, whatever.
Yep.
It doesn't matter to us.
Dude,
We make
fight.
multi-billion dollars a year, like 250 million. Yeah, cool. There's your lawyer fees.
Yep. Fight Club has the best breakdown on that, where he's talking about the car companies and the cost of recalls versus the cost of lawsuits.
Oh yeah.
It's A plus B equals C. If they don't, it's like that's
Yeah.
100%. But that's a real thing. Like
It
it's not
is.
unique to the pharmaceutical industry for sure.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
That's just kind of it's like retail. They budget in a certain amount of shit that they know that's going to get stolen. You know, it's just
Yeah. Yeah, or like stuff that's going to get broken,
Yep.
you know, in like a grocery store or something like that.
It's called shrink.
Yeah. Guy works at grocery store.
I
Once.
was gonna say.
It's called shrink.
So, I mean, we probably start wrapping this up. I think it's almost time. So I will say, I'll throw it out there. At one point during this, I got a notification that popped up on the screen that said, "You've been gifted by Zoom. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
You no longer have the 40-minute limit." So I don't know if it's just this episode or like it's definitely not like for a long, it's not everything moving forward because then they would lose so much money. But yeah, we didn't have a break today.
I saw that. I got a pop-up that said
Oh, you did too?
the host has upgraded this to unlimited minutes.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's probably just good for today. But I don't know, unless you guys have anything else you want to touch on before we wrap things up.
I'm COVIDed out.
Yeah, I'm good.
I've been COVIDed out for the last year.
Yeah.
But I will say that the thing you sent me on Boston.
Oh
for the-
yeah,
the
shit.
passport. That's so fucked. That's so fucked. Not that I'm planning on doing anything in Boston for the next, I guess, forever. But that's wild. That's wild and that's scary.
Yeah. Yeah, Des, did you see that Boston instituted a vaccine passport?
Yep. I did.
And now they're also well, there's like surrounding cities and towns that are talking about doing it too. Like I think it was Cambridge.
I said, there's no way that Cameron
Brookline,
doesn't jump on that one.
Somerville.
Yeah.
A couple.
You got to
couple of
imagine.
them.
Yeah. I mean, so like obviously suburbs that basically just are Boston is
Right.
Brookline, Cambridge, Somerville, and Newton. They are all the same fucking place.
Yeah.
Medford will probably jump on it. Actually, so I guess the mayor of Medford and I guess anyone that like kind of disagrees with her, like in her office, whatever, she just calls the cops, gets them all fucking removed.
Really?
Yeah. She has people like, I guess it's like every day now. She just has someone like police escorted out of her office.
Like citizens that come in to complain or like her constituents?
No, I think it was like, I don't know. My mother was telling me, she goes, oh, just the other day, it was like, say it's the head of, I don't know, like, let's just say like Medford had like an electrical union.
Yeah.
And like the head of the electrical union was in her office, like kind of getting pissed at her. And she's having people like removed from the office and arrested like pretty regularly.
Now, Bob, I'm just saying, just from this episode alone, I think we need to check your mother's fucking sources here because I'm not sure.
So that one you can fact check because you can check the logs. That's public info.
Oh, police logs?
Yeah. Now the other stuff, yeah, I just let her. If it's not about the cemetery, I just let it go.
Yeah, that's because I was like, that's got to be like an abuse of power. If it's, I guess you could make the argument either way, whether it's her constituents,
Well, if it wasn't,
or if it's citizens.
yeah, I mean,
Depends on-
like it's just arguing semantics.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this wasn't a scheduled meeting. You're not supposed to be in my office. Now you're trespassing. Like,
yeah,
that's what it ends up going through is trespassing.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's literally like, not to break it down, but trespassing is like, if you have the authority to ask someone to leave and they refuse to leave, then they're trespassing. So
Yeah.
It's not really like
Yeah, wow, that's like a very low bar.
very low bar.
I feel like there should be like maybe a little bit more involved in there.
Yeah, it can be kind of a catch-all. If somebody's being a pain in the ass, just be like, all right, you need to leave now. As long as you have the authority to do that, it becomes a problem if you don't leave. So,
That's hilarious.
yeah. I mean, yeah.
It'll come in handy though if you ever get into a like a family argument or something. You'd be like, "Get out of my house," and then if they don't leave, you'd be like, "Yep, you're
Yes,
trespassing."
It is. So that's one of those sort of like, yeah, like it's one of those catch-all things where it's like, well, I don't have the authority to ask you to leave this house, but that dude does, and he wants you to go. So I guess we're going, right?
You can either walk out of here with me,
Yep.
or I can take you.
Pretty much.
Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't realize it was actually that low of a
Yeah.
bar.
Yep.
Wild. Well, that's why probably I guess you get a little bit more into the domestic side of it, but just I guess that's why there's so much activity on Thanksgiving and Christmas.
That might be the alcohol inducing.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say that's all the alcohol. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I mean, if it's honestly, man, like Halloween is usually pretty rough. 4th of July, Memorial Day.
Yeah.
New Year's can be, but it's, I mean, up here, it's so fucking cold.
Right.
Not
Yeah, I'd imagine
being-
like 4th of July is probably fucking miserable because like everyone thinks that they're fucking, you know, Uncle Sam.
Yes.
You know, they're like,
I have-
this is a fucking free country. It's
My-
fucking 4th of July, kid. It's like,
my-
well, there's still laws.
My tolerance level for amateur fireworks is fucking 0. It is 0. And it's, I went through that phase of my life in my early 20s where it was just like you go to the fireworks store. You guys probably aren't familiar because you're from Massachusetts.
We used to cross
go
the
over.
border.
Of course you did. And like, I mean, they're so cheap. They're so, and I mean, obviously, I mean, it's not like it's quality construction because you're taking your life in your hands every time you light one of those fuses.
Yeah.
But they're so cheap. So I get it. You can get like just hundreds of pounds of fireworks for just no money at all. But I just can't.
Best part is too, you go up there and it's like these big mortar shells. It's like buy 2, get 3 free. And it's like,
Yes.
what the fuck do I
The
need all
deals.
these things?
Yeah.
It's like happy hour for fucking explosives.
Yes. Dude, I think ultimately that is going, or that is like the underlying plan of the Chinese is just to take us out with our own fireworks. Because I mean, it's all built in China, and they're just like one by one, just fucking Darwinism is taking over, just picking off the lower levels of intelligence based on their amateur fireworks consumption.
I mean, I think that's a real thing though, too. Not that like that's a whole another rabbit hole we can go down, but like the whole China like long game thing, I think is like legit. I think that is legit.
1,000%.
There was you
know.
told me to listen to one of the podcasts with Jocko.
Yep.
Is it him and Stump, Andy Stump?
No, him and what was it? He does one.
Was he
called The
retired general?
I am so balls deep in Jocko's shit. It's unbelievable. So I get my wires crossed sometimes, but it's one of the underground podcasts. He does another one with a guy who's also retired military, where they do like really deep dives into kind of controversial stuff. And I was telling you, like, I think Jocko's trying to get himself thrown off of the mainstream platform. I really do. I really think he's pushing on that, and it's going to be because of the topics he talks about, not the words that he's saying. It's all the shit he's talking about. The Armenian genocide and
I had no idea the whole like the Chinese movies with Frank Grillo.
Oh yeah,
which was really upsetting because I liked Frank Grillo.
Yep.
And like now I don't think I'll ever watch a movie with him in it ever again.
Yep.
So Dats, there was Frank Grillo is Crossbones.
Yeah, Romanow or whatever.
Yeah, in Marvel.
Yeah, he's in one of the Marvel movies, right?
Yeah. So he admitted to this in an interview. He said they backed up the Brinks truck and paid him a ridiculous amount of money, they being the Chinese government, to play an American Navy SEAL in a Chinese propaganda film. So it's called like Wolf Warrior or something. And there's 3, it's a trilogy. So it's let's call it Wolf Warrior. So it's legitimately a Chinese propaganda film where the main protagonist is this Chinese military guy, and the antagonist is Frank Grillo, who is a retired Navy SEAL that works for some like shady corporation that's doing like back alley deals in China. So it's up to this Wolf Warrior guy to kind of beat him essentially. But like at the very end of the movie, there's all this stuff where like Frank Grillo like spits on him and says like your kind will never be superior to us or something, where it's like the lines are like just so blatantly obvious that it's proper. Like if there's a fight scene between two people, like why would one person be like, your race is inferior to mine? You know what I mean? Like, does like that? You don't say that. You know, like it's clearly like there's motivation there. But yeah, so then like Frank Grillo does this whole thing. He's like super disrespectful. And then obviously in typical like American fashion, he like slips or something, or like something happens. And then the Chinese wolf warrior guy ends up killing him in the end. And then he's like, this is for China and my country, and then kills him. And it's like a whole thing. But yeah,
Wolf warrior, you got it.
Yeah. Apparently it's very blatant. And Frank Grillo was like, yeah, they paid me a fuck ton of money, so I did it.
It's old, 2017.
Yeah. Yeah, but there's 3 of them now. So
I think he was only in 1.
yeah, they killed him at the end.
Okay.
But like I said, it's like one of those things where it's like, what are you doing? Like, what? I don't know. It's just weird. And it when I heard about it, I was like, it's dumb. Because like I said, like I actually did like Frank Grillo. Like I've watched some of his other movies and I thought they were really good, but I think I'm out on Frank Grillo now. Like I don't think I'll watch and support any of his.
You can't separate
movies.
the art from the artist. Come on.
Yeah.
Come
Dude.
on.
Wolf Warrior 2 is the second highest grossing film of all time.
Yeah. Why do you think?
But it's it's like specific to its market. So in China, so it generated 8. What's the? I mean, oh my God, their money is fucking nothing. 874 million equivalent of US dollars, and that's in China. Star Wars in North America generated 936. So it did better in China than Endgame did in North America.
Yeah. Well, why do you think Hollywood bends over backwards for China?
No, I know, and I know you've said that many times. It's just seeing the numbers.
Yeah, it's wild. So this is funny. This isn't, I guess, not maybe funny, but I learned this the other day. Do you know why in Doctor Strange the Sorcerer Supreme is the little white lady, the bald white lady?
It's a Tibetan monk or something in the actual comic books, right?
Yeah.
Is it a different actor over there? Do they fucking CGI it?
No.
No,
It's a little white lady because they didn't want to use a real Tibetan monk because China does not acknowledge Tibet as its own country. So if Marvel had stayed true to the comic book, it would have been a monk, a Tibetan monk who was the Sorcerer Supreme who trained Stephen Strange. But because they knew they were going to have to take the movie to China and they wanted to make money, they changed the character from a Tibetan monk to a short little white lady.
I thought you were Rage Against the Machine fan over there. Come on, did you remember? No? All right.
No, I remember the cover where the guy lit himself on fire. You can remember. I don't put 2 and 2 together.
That's all right. So Tom Morello used to hang the fucking free Tibet shit from his amps all the time. Anyways, moving on.
So that's the whole reason behind the Marvel thing and why they changed the character. And there's no reference to Tibet or anything. They go to what, Kamataj, which is in Nepal, which is somewhere different. You know what I mean? Like Nepal's not China or Tibet. Like they did it for a reason.
Yeah.
They did it for a reason. They knew what they were doing. And they didn't want to piss off China. So.
I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's their wallet. So.
Yeah.
They need the Chinese to spend their money on them. I get it.
Yeah. I guess now we can wrap it up.
So I had a question posed to me at the gym the other day. Now it was posed from a 6th grader. So her answer, I don't even remember what it was. Doesn't matter. And she just like point blank asked, she goes, what grade do you think is the hardest? And I'm like, this is random as fuck. And I'm like, I go, I don't know, junior year of high school. She's like, no, it's 7th grade. And I'm like, what? I go, what is so fucking difficult about 7th grade?
Yeah.
She's like, well, 6th grade, everyone kind of holds your hand because you're in a new school and you don't know anything. So they kind of like do it all for you. 8th grade, you're like king of the school and you're on your way out. She goes, 7th grade, we're just sitting here kind of like, and she didn't like know the words, but she's just like purgatory. And I'm like, sister, 7th grade ain't that fucking hard. It's just fucking not.
No, it's not.
So off the cuff, which grade do you think is the hardest? Not from a schoolwork perspective.
Not from a schoolwork?
No, because I think junior year of high school is the hardest year of school because it's it's the most actual work.
Yeah.
And senior year, you get to fucking fuck off after a certain amount of time.
Yeah. The hardest. Not from an academic though. Maybe freshman year of high school. Because you're the low man on the totem pole. You're the only, well, no, sophomores, I guess, can't drive either. I was going to say that you're the only ones that can't really drive yet.
Sophomores are the shittiest.
You can't, yeah. So when you originally said junior year was the hardest, I was going to say either sophomore or junior year, because I think they both suck. But I think freshman year has got to be the hardest from like a social standpoint, because like you could have been the coolest fucking kid in 8th grade in your entire middle school. And the second you walk into high school, you're a little bitch, right? Because no one gives a shit, so I don't know. You don't know anything. Typically high schools are massive, right? So you're going to get lost. You're inevitably going to end up getting lost in your high school. You're not going to know where to go. It's all different. Like in middle school, at least I can't speak for everyone, but at least for our middle school with me, where me and Bob were, like we did travel classes, because I know some middle schools don't, right? Some middle schools don't change classes, but we did. But even though we did, all of our classes were right next to each other. They were like 3 or 4 classrooms in a row, and you just go from one to the other to the other. So like in high school, you're going all over the building. So it's like, I don't know. I think freshman year of high school was probably the hardest from a non-academic standpoint.
I'm going to go, this is completely just my own experience. I'm not making a blanket, this is the most difficult year. My hardest year was 5th grade. And that was because that's when we started switching classes. And that was hard. I don't know why, like, you just said that and immediately popped in my head was 5th grade. Like just bouncing between, I think we had 3 teachers, and just changing classes and going back and forth and having multiple. That was my first exposure to having multiple teachers for different classes. I don't really have a better explanation as to why, other than that was the first thing I thought when you said that. So I have no other explanation other than just the switching classes and having, exposure. And probably, I don't know, teachers were kind of shitty.
Yeah, that definitely.
See, I had
to do with it.
I had the advantage and disadvantage where my mother was a teacher in not the same town. Well, she was, and then she moved. She knew everybody in the school. So like my mother could pick who she wanted my teachers to be.
Right.
And she did very well for 99% of the time, except for 5th grade, where she put me with her best friend, who I did not get along with at all. So it just created like this weird kind of friction where it's just like my mother was really good friends with her. Like it was weird. You guys probably didn't have this experience. When I was growing up, we would have like, my mother would have parties at our house. And so we'd have all these teachers at my house. Like we had a pool when I was growing up. So we had like teachers in like hanging out, like, I don't know. probably just fucking post-traumatic stress from dealing with that. But like, I mean, just imagine like if you guys had teachers and all of a sudden on your summer vacation, you have your teachers at your house swimming in your swimming pool. Like that was a very strange experience.
Right. It's like, wait,
So,
you're my teacher. Like,
yes.
why are you at my house?
Why are you here? And I understood it, but it was because it had happened forever. But I had this particular teacher and she was very nice and she was fine, but I just didn't get along with her. And anyways, that's my answer. 5th grade.
Huh.
Fine.
So I thought about it, and the easy answer is either like freshman year of high school, freshman year of college, because it's like, oh, it's an adjustment, whatever. But
I didn't even think about college.
well, so I didn't want to go. Well, freshman year of college is too easy. It's like, oh, it's new and whatever. It's like, but it ain't that hard because they fucking know you don't know anything, and they kind of help you out. There's orientation. There's all right. Like there's people there. There's help. There's no help if
sophomore year of college fucking blows.
That's what I was going with.
Yeah.
So I was going to say sophomore year of college because you're not a freshman anymore, but you're not upper class. You're not usually 21 yet.
Yep.
Right.
So you're kind of stuck. And if you do anything with other, like if you do a sport or a club, whatever, there's people older than you. And then they are 21 and they can go do things and you still can't. But you don't want to hang out with the freshmen because the freshmen kind of band together and plus they're stupid freshmen. So, and then from a class perspective, you're not quite into like all your major classes. So you still have to do the other shit. Like you're still taking myth and culture or fucking like, you know, the speaking seminar, like whatever.
Canadian literature.
like, so you're still taking the bullshit.
Yeah.
So the class might not be that hard, but you just don't give a fuck. And like, you're just like kind of, it's a kind of a purgatory.
Yeah, because you're past the 100 level classes, right? So freshman year, you try and bang out your 100s, but then like your sophomore year, like you might have to take the next level of shit.
Yeah, but you still have to take like anthropology I mean, at Bridgewater, you still have to take like anthropology or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's like, I do not want to fucking take this class. Fuck this.
Or philosophy.
Yep.
Philosophy fucking sucks. It's the worst class ever. Like if you want to make someone really want to quit college, like put them through a philosophy class in their first semester of college.
That's what I did. I used to smoke clove cigarettes walking across campus to fucking philosophy class.
Why? Why did you do that?
I was a fucking freshman. I didn't know any better.
Yep. U.S. Mexican history. Fucking family violence. Actually, it's played out quite well. And what was the other one? There was an anthropology class as well. God damn it. It was a kinesiology class, like the study of aging. Nope. Hard pass. I know you guys are balls deep in the exercise shit, but nope.
Yeah. So we were the kings, especially like our friend group was. So you had to hit like different things, right? Like there was like different things for your degree audit is what we called it.
Yeah.
So it was like you had to have one thing that was a multicultural, one thing that was a writing intensive, one thing that was like a global or whatever. But what we used to do was we used to look for the courses that checked the most boxes.
Yeah.
So if you could get a writing intensive class that counted as a global and then also took like one of your history things, like we were like, all right, I'm taking that class because it checks 3 boxes. But unfortunately, that class is like ancient Canadian literature or something stupid.
Myth and culture.
Yeah, myth and culture. Like it's a terrible fucking class. But it checks like 4 boxes on your degree audit. So you're like, yeah, fuck yeah, I can use one class for all of this. And it's just miserable. And it's just, you have just the most miserable existence ever.
Yeah, it's one of those like seems good on the front end, but fucks you on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, oh man, I can take this one class to do all of these. It must be, that's great. And then you sit through the class, and you're like, holy shit, this class fucking sucks.
Suicidal.
Yeah. But you can't drop it.
No, it covers too many requirements.
Because it covers too many requirements.
I'm about to venture into that realm again. So here we fucking go.
Well, I mean, grad school is a little bit different.
In my gender neutral bathrooms.
Yeah. Do you have to wear a name tag with your pronouns on it?
That's right. Right. gonna start adding that to the end of my emails.
Yeah.
He, him,
Yeah.
his. Listen. Anyways,
Do you have a final thought?
I do. So I was gonna make this like a little bit philosophical, but I'm not. So, we've had the conversation before. How we were introduced to each other was about podcasts.
Mhm.
I listen to a lot of podcasts and probably spend, I don't even know, couldn't even count how many hours a week I would spend listening to podcasts. One of them specifically is I listen to CBS Fantasy Football Today, their podcast, which is between an hour and a half, 7 days a week, full 7 days a week. So add that up. How many hours is that? Probably between 9, 10, 11 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Ask me how many fantasy football leagues I'm in this year. The answer is zero. The answer is zero. Okay. Wait, it gets better. Ask me how many football games I've seen on TV this year.
Also zero.
Same answer, zero. But my my OCD will not allow me to not listen to this podcast. So I am just every single day listening to Jamie Eisenberg, Dave Richard, Adam Azer, and Heath Cummings for an hour to an hour and a half on information that I literally will never use ever. Because I'm not in any fantasy football leagues and I watch zero football. So I guess that's my final thought is
You could give great advice though.
I guess I could. Make better use of your time than I am.
Yeah, I guess, or don't, whatever.
I mean, whatever. Live your life. Do what you
Yeah, I
want.
mean, because if anyone heard this, that means they're listening to this show. So, like,
Fair enough.
I can't tell you to really make better use of your time because you wouldn't listen to this show.
Listen, subscribe, and comment, right?
Yeah.
Well, good
That's too
algorithm.
funny.
That's awesome.
It's not awesome, but though I will have some new time available as they just finished the last episode of the Talking Sopranos podcast, which is now done. So that was another 2 to 3 hours every single week that I was investing. That was a good one, but still.
Now, are you listening outside of the car as well? Or are you like
Yes.
strictly in the car? Okay.
Oh no, sir, it is running. If I have a spare moment available, if I'm making my breakfast, there's a podcast going. If I'm working out, there's a podcast going. I essentially it's just always going all the time.
I've gotten to that
There's-
point too,
Yeah, it's not good.
where
And the information retention also is not so good.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of background noise. It's not music. It's just people talking to each other, that a conversation that I'm not involved in, though I think I am, and respond accordingly. Yeah, there's some of them that I've listened to. I have to listen every time it comes out. I have to listen. Also, you guys watch The Office, or have you watched The Office before?
I've
I
seen a
never
couple
watched-
episodes here and
I
there.
never watched The
Okay.
Office.
So same, it's okay. I somehow started listening to an Office podcast, and now I can't stop listening to it, even though I'm completely checked out of it. Again, make better use of your time than I do.
Yeah, I mean, so I've gotten to the point now where I will literally listen to podcasts all the time, like constantly. And like where you said you like making breakfast, I'd like now that's what I do.
Mhm.
Where I'm also I'm at the point where like if I have a free morning, which I'm gonna have a lot of free mornings for at least the next week.
Wayne.
I also can't I almost can't sit in silence anymore, where it's
Right.
weird.
That's what. Yes. You just
Like
nailed it.
I'll be making breakfast, and because I just did this last week, like I had one morning where I didn't have to work, at least not until later in the day. So I'm sitting there and I'm going and I'm making breakfast, and I'm like, I don't like this. I need to listen to something. So then I just put one of the podcasts on my phone and like listened to it while I was making breakfast, and then while I was eating, and then I came up in the office and here, and then continued it on Spotify.
It's a slippery slope, my friend.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
getting sucked
But you're
down a rabbit
not
hole.
alone.
You can't be alone in your thoughts. That's what it is. You just have to be entertained by other people.
Well, I think that's the beauty about podcasts, though, right? Is it's well, there's a lot of reasons that make them good, but a lot of it, I think the biggest one is that it's just kind of like unfiltered, right? It's just like you talk about whatever you want. But the other thing that makes them so popular, I think, is the connection that people build, right? So if you listen to the podcast enough, like I think this is our 314th episode. So if they've been longer, but say every episode is 1 hour, that's 314 hours that exists. That is just my stupid voice that's out there.
It's horrifying.
And people can listen to, like, there's some people that have listened to every single episode, and it's like, yeah. And it's like, you get to know that person on a different level. And
They
like, we actually do talk, right? Like we
Dude,
actually are friends.
I
But, like,
communicate more
there's
with you than
people-
like a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Most other people, I would say. And I've met you one time.
But like, there's people like, like there's people that listen to us in Texas and Arkansas and Oklahoma that I've never met and I never will meet. But if they've listened to tens of hours or hundreds of hours of me talking, like they know me, like they know Bob.
They
Like,
might know me better than I know myself.
Yeah. And it's wild.
Probably true.
And it's one of those things where like I look at it like Joe Rogan, right? Like the life he lives is so wild because he has hundreds of millions of downloads per episode. So at any moment he could be walking through his life and come across someone that's listened, and he's done 50, almost 1,500 episodes at like 3 hours a pop. So like do the math on that. And that's, almost 5,000 hours. So like you have people that have listened to him for 5,000 hours that like know him, but they don't know him.
It is,
wild. Like the people stop him on the street and be like, Joe, and he's like, who the fuck are you? Like, I don't know you.
They'll cite something from 3 years ago that they like, it was a fleeting thought for him and they're like fucking honed in on it.
Yeah. And it's wild. Like that's, like I said, though, I think that's what makes podcasts so popular is like you said, like you feel like you're in it, but you're not. So they're great. I'm addicted. I love them.
No doubt.
So my final thought, I will be brief because I also don't want it to be like a big spoiler or anything, but I went and saw the new Spider-Man movie. Yesterday. It was yesterday, Christmas. When did I go? Friday. So it was amazing. I cannot recommend it enough. It was by far the best Spider-Man movie that's ever been out. Like I'm saying, like going back to the Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, like all 6, I think that exist, right? There was 3. Did Andrew Garfield do 2?
3, 2, 2.
3, 2, and 3.
3 now.
Yeah. No idea. You guys are way more into the Marvel.
So of the 8 Spider-Mans, it was the best one. It was really, really cool. It was really well done. I thought they did a very good job blending things together, and giving you a cool picture of like what's to come, but also kind of like paying homage to like what was in the past, right? So this isn't a spoiler because it's in
it's not a spoiler. We know the previous actors are in it.
Yeah, the Doc Ock is in it. Like he's in the trailer. Like you see the trailer on the commercial on TV, and Doc Ock is in it. So it is cool, right? Like they did a fantastic job blending them together. And it's one, I would probably maybe put it top 5 for me of all the Marvel movies. So of all, however many exist now, 27, whatever we're at.
I don't know what we're up to.
The Spider-Man movies are the ones that I really haven't seen because they're not on Disney Plus. They're like, whatever that fucking contract is that they have or don't have, whatever it is. So I haven't been able to see.
Yeah. So for me, just personally, as a kid, Spider-Man was my favorite superhero. I think it was probably because of the cartoon that was around.
The cartoon was fucking amazing.
Yeah, like and so I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
but like this movie was just really cool. Like, because it brought a little bit of all the different Spider-Man stuff from the worlds into it. And it's just cool. Like I said, it's cool because I've seen them all. And I enjoyed it. And I think everyone should go out and see it.
No, I've heard similar from just about everyone. Everyone's saying it's good.
Yeah. And it also, like I said, it sets up the next batch of movies like very well.
Yeah, and Doctor Strange is the next movie, so.
Well, that makes perfect sense now because obviously, well, that's the other thing too. Everyone knows Doctor Strange is in the Spider-Man movie again. He's in the trailer, so no spoilers here. But yeah, he did it. He was great in it. So I think that's probably all I can say without actually giving anything away. But it was great. So, so that's going to do it. So. Thank you for watching. If you're on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe, give us a thumbs up, subscribe wherever you're listening. If you use Apple Podcasts, go to the iTunes store, rate and review over there, all that fun stuff. Big thank you to mybookie.com. Use our promo code SarcasmPod to double your first deposit up to $1,000 over there. I actually think I have to check on my bets. I might be undefeated today. Nope, not true. Denver lost. So I went 3-1. I'm 3-1 so far on the day. So thanks to mybookie.com. Again, promo code SarcasmPod over there. Same promo code SarcasmPod over at grillyourassoff.com will get you 15% off your entire order. The greatest seasoning company in the world. Flavor God can fuck off. Meat Church can suck my dick. grillyourassoff.com is the greatest seasoning company ever. They have everything you could ever imagine. Go to grillyourassoff.com. Again, use our promo code SarcasmPod for 15% off your entire order every single time you check out. Not a one-time deal. It's a multi-use time deal. That's good English. So
that English as well.
Yep. You can also get us on, you can follow us on Instagram at Sarcasm Speaks Pod, on Twitter at Sarcasm_speaks, and on Facebook at Sarcasm Speaks. So until next time, good night, everyone.